we're back. In today's video, we're gonna be reacting to There May Never Be Another GOAT by Jimmy High Roller.
How much?
Yours, of course. You already know the man, the myth, the legend. Let's get into it.
NBA championship worth.
After 53 years, the
Okay,
Knicks
well,
have finally.
there's context to that. Yeah, I'm already starting the video off. I'm already saying stuff. An NBA championship, depending on who's the player, what career, and what point of their career they're at, can really elevate or change the narrative base. Like Carly Towns just won a championship, and it changed the narrative around him being a soft player and not being able to win a championship.
Champions once again.
And Jalen Brunson, small guard. No one thinks small guards can win championships outside of Steph Curry or the guys of the past. And he did that.
Ring is a ring, but intuitively, we as fans know that not all rings hold the same value.
Yes,
I ask this question because 2 weeks ago, the New York Knicks did what many doubted they could, and they didn't just win the NBA Finals, they completely dominated in the finals on their way to their first championship in over half a century.
I mean,
and
the
while
Spurs
fans
were up in every
celebrated
game,
and the
but
city of
yes.
New York rejoiced in their rise back to glory, there was one reaction to their success and the culture of winning in the NBA that made headlines.
I like to know that greatness is validated. How do we know that any of the last 8 champions are actually validated because they have not done it again? Giannis is.
See, that's the thing that I hate. He's mentioning the teams that didn't. He's mentioning the teams, the last 8 champions, and he's like, well, they haven't necessarily won. You know, they haven't went back to back. Okay, so Toronto the next year prior. Toronto, the Warriors missed the playoffs. They were the runner-ups for the championship. And Toronto, the team that did win the championship, the champion, they won more games than they did the year prior, and they ended up going on to face Boston in the second round. They lose to Boston in 7 games in the second round. And the Lakers went on to win the championship. The Lakers the next year started off the year great, by the way. The Lakers started off the year 28-13 or something like that. LeBron goes down due to Solomon Hill. Then the Lakers start falling apart. Then they lose in the first round of the playoffs to the Phoenix Suns. The Milwaukee Bucks, they win the championship that year. The next year, the Milwaukee Bucks win about 50-something games. They end up taking Boston to 7 games. After, mind you, they went up 3-2, by the way, in the Eastern Conference semifinals. They end up losing in Game 7 to Boston due to Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum's miraculous, performance. The Warriors go on to win the championship. The Warriors have chemistry issues with Jordan Poole and Draymond Green because of the whole incident that happened where Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole. So then the Warriors lose in the second round to the Los Angeles Lakers in 6 games. Boom, boom, bam. The Denver Nuggets, who did win the championship that year, the Denver Nuggets then go on to win the championship. The next following year, the Minnesota Timberwolves construct the team. The Minnesota Timberwolves construct the team just well enough to beat, that it's supposed to beat it's supposed to be the Denver Nuggets. They end up beating the Denver Nuggets in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. And then Dallas goes on to go to the finals. Well, no, Dallas didn't win the championship. Boston ends up winning the championship. Yep, Boston wins the championship. Boston then goes on to this is the same year that they go out and get Mikal Bridges and all that, but the Knicks. But Boston goes on to play the Knicks in the second round. They lose to the Knicks in 6 games. Jason Tatum tears his Achilles. So there's context to this, by the way. Yeah. So like I say, you have to add context to this. Jason Tatum tears his Achilles. The Oklahoma City Thunder win the championship in Game 7 against the Indiana Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton ends up tearing his Achilles, of course, obviously, but that's beside the point. OKC wins the championship. OKC ends up losing in a Game 7 to the San Antonio Spurs, with their team basically being down their second best player, and Chet Holmgren basically playing like absolute dog water the entire postseason, because the entire Eastern Conference Finals because Wemby is just better than him and neutralizes him. And the Knicks going to win the championship. That's that. So I just named the last 8 champions that won the championship and what happened to them the year prior. And a lot has to do with injuries, chemistry loss, other teams being built to beat them, and injuries. So that's literally what that comes down to.
To get out. Boston is thinking about trading Jaylen Brown. They don't believe in their one championship. LeBron's one championship in LA was not enough. So why would it be enough for us?
Validate is the Larry O'Brien that I put on that shelf and stays there forever. That's the validation. The Laker thing.
Oh, you mean participation trophy then?
I'm sorry, Larry O'Brien is a participation trophy?
If everybody gets one.
Yes, you heard that correctly.
And this is why this guy right here, I'm sorry, but he needs to lose all credibility for his job. He needs to lose all credibility for his job. Because what do you mean? What do you mean? It's a participation trophy. Everyone wins it. There are teams in the NBA that have never been to the finals. There are teams in the NBA that have never won a championship. It is not a participation trophy. Majority of the championships have been won by Boston and the Lakers. Boston having 18 titles and the Lakers having 17 titles. They have majority of the NBA championships in the NBA. Then next you have the Warriors, not even going to put it in order. The Warriors, the Bulls, the Spurs, and then you go down the line of teams that have only won like 3. Like you go down the line even further than that. Then you go to like Miami. You know what I mean? You go down to the teams that have won like 3 titles. Miami's won 3 titles in the last. Miami's won 3 championships in the last 25 years. In the last 25 years, Miami's won 3 championships. So, just let that know. The Lakers have won, in the last 25 years, the Lakers have won about 6, maybe 7 championships. Boston's won 2. So, Warriors have won 5. Well, Warriors have like 4 in total. Yeah, Warriors have won 4. And in the past, the Warriors have won 4 championships in the last 25 years. Spurs have about 3 or 4. About 3 or 4 championships in the last couple years or so. So, yeah, you know.
Of the sport, the ultimate goal every basketball player sets to achieve from the first time they ever lace up is nothing but a participation trophy. This, my friends,
This is the worst take I've ever seen in my life. This is the worst and most dumbest take I've ever seen in my life. Saying that it's a participation trophy because everyone gets one, you're absolutely not thinking of the context of what goes on in a season or what goes on in the playoffs or what happens to a team that wins a championship, depending on if the second apron kicks in or they can't bring back guys or if injuries happen in the postseason or if, you know, guys get traded. Like you're not, you know, acknowledging what he's not acknowledging, you know, the things that go on in the season. So calling it participation trophy is the dumbest thing you could possibly ever do in your life. And this was a dumb take. This was a stupid and dumb take.
Symptom of ring culture, when nothing matters but hoisting the trophy at the end of the season, and even that is invalid if you've only done it once.
Yeah.
But ring culture fails to address one key thing. Not all rings are created equal. Dirk Nowitzki has 1 ring, but it was arguably the most difficult championship won in modern.
That 2011 ring was arguably, yes, one of the most, if not the most difficult championship to win. He did not have a co-star on that team. It was just him. He had no co-stars on that team. He also took on the Big 3 Miami team when they were all in their prime. He took on Russ, KD, and Harden. Obviously, none of those guys were in their prime yet, but they were pretty damn good. Harden wasn't the same level as the other 2, but They were pretty damn good. They ended up going to the finals the next year, by the way. He beat Kobe, who was still at the peak of his game, and Pau Gasol. So yeah.
In NBA history. It's held to such high regard, it might as well be 2 rings. But then there's Kevin Durant, who actually does have 2 rings, but he had to join an already polished record-breaking Warriors team to get them. Dirk's 1 is almost universally regarded as greater than Durant's 2.
Yes, it is.
And this same logic can be applied in different circumstances, even across eras. Which player is greater? The guy with 11 rings or the guy with 6? Probably the player who has 11, right?
No.
Well, what if the player who won 11 did it in the 60s when the league only had 8 to 14 teams? And what if the guy with 6 won them in historically dominant fashion in a much more competitive league?
Yes.
Going against everything you learned in math class, in some situations, 6 is actually greater than 11. But can this same exact logic be applied to today's league? If the evolution of the league makes it clear that Jordan 6 is greater or at least equivalent.
Well, some rings cementify players' careers. Like, I think for Jokic has 4 MVPs, 1 championship. Giannis has 2 MVPs, 1 championship. But Giannis's 2 MVPs and 1 championship are greater than Kevin Durant's 2 championships and 1 MVP. And Jokic's 4 MVPs in 1 championship is greater than Kevin Durant's 2 championships and 1 MVP. You know what I mean? Like in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown winning that championship in 2024, with their careers already as how it is, they're already cemented as Celtics all-time greats. Their jerseys, even though Jaylen Brown has been traded from the Celtics, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum's jerseys will be retired by the Celtics.
To Russell's
It's not that a player doesn't have
then
anything
what
to
is the
prove.
equivalent to Jordan's 6 rings in today's NBA? 2 rings?
Nothing.
3? It sounds
It would
like a
have to be
crazy
3.
concept at first. The idea of 2 or 3 rings.
If Kawhi,
vaulting a
okay.
player into
If Kawhi wins another championship with Toronto, Kawhi has 2 championships. If Kawhi wins another championship with Toronto this season, if Kawhi this upcoming season, goes on to win a championship with Toronto, Kawhi immediately jumps up into that top 15 all time. Top 15 all time. He actually probably jumps Kevin Durant. You know, Kevin Durant and Kawhi are actually really close relative to what people think. Yes, Kawhi doesn't have any MVPs, but they're relatively close.
to the same conversation as players who dominated an entire generation of basketball. But the further we get into this era of parity in the NBA, the more this idea feels like a reality. So how much is a championship actually worth?
If Anthony Edwards wins a championship for the Minnesota Timberwolves, his championship is worth more than any of the last 8 championships. Automatically. They've never won a championship. They've never won a championship, by the way. So, if Anthony Edwards wins a championship, that automatically makes his championship greater than
Today's video is sponsored by Arena Club.
I'm not sponsored. The channel only has 13 subscribers.
I think winning a guy winning 3 rings now in the 2020s with especially the second apron stuff, and I think it would be even in a weird way more impressive because everybody's better at putting together a team, and we also have more high-end talent.
If a 3,
right? Giannis has only won 1 title too.
If Jokic wins 1 title and that's it, he's going to be the ultimate sort of barometer for this, because the statistics are going to say he's a top whatever single-digit player of all time.
Well, yes.
I think the big thing to remember when you talk about this stuff is what era was the guy in and how good was the league, how competitive it was, right? And I just wonder, is it just everybody's going to win 1 or 2 now going forward?
Ring culture has been a highly debated topic for a
the days of guys winning 2 or 3 championships now, I don't know if that's even possible now. Maybe 3 championships. I'm going to say the days of guys being able to win 2 championships is very possible. The days of guys being able to win 3 championships, impossible. A 3-peat, not going to happen. Back-to-back, more than likely not going to happen either. So, it just, It's tough. Like obviously you're gonna have guys that are still gonna be in like this OKC has an opportunity to do it. Denver still has an opportunity to do it. Who else could possibly have opportunity to do it? The Celtics, maybe. I don't know, man. With their roster construction, how the East is, I don't know. Toronto can do it. Toronto already has one. If Toronto wins another one, then that's two.
While now. The idea that rings are not just a measure of a player's greatness, but the only measure of a player's greatness.
They're not.
For as long as fans have been debating, rings have reigned supreme in measuring a
Clay
player's
has 4
dominance.
championships,
In spite
but
of
he's not
everything a
better
player does throughout his
than
career, winning or
Allen
not winning a
Iverson.
championship will be the final verdict of his abilities. It is the ultimate barometer of how great a player is and was. But what do we do if that barometer breaks? What do we do when the criteria for measuring greatness isn't properly calibrated?
It's always
If winning
changed.
a ring in today's NBA is more difficult than it was in the past, and the weight a ring holds depends on how difficult it was to obtain, are we reaching the point where the NBA is so competitive and so deep that 2 or 3 rings can be as great as 6?
I don't know.
Parity,
You
or a state in which
pushing with 6. Jordan did win. Jordan did 3-peat twice. You're pushing 6. I'm not gonna do that. But the way the talent is in the league and teams are always building to beat teams that won the championship and second apron's always kicking in. Yeah, bro. You might just have to just say winning. If a guy comes around and wins back to back, that already puts him in a high stature, because that's insane.
things are equal, equivalent, or evenly matched is a good thing. When things are more equal, more teams have a chance to win, more fans are engaged, and of course, more players have a chance to win.
Yes.
And right now, the NBA is seeing more parity both in terms of championship teams and even winning teams than it ever has before. Of course, this was not always the case in the NBA. Here is a timeline of players who had the most rings in the NBA in any given season, dating back to 1969 when Bill Russell won his 11th championship, a record that still holds up today and will more than likely hold up until the end of time. But similar to today, the 70s were also a time of growing parity in the NBA. 7 different teams won a championship over the course of the decade, and so going into the 80s, the active leader in rings had just 3. But it didn't take long for that total to grow again. By the mid-80s, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar held the crown before he ended the decade with 6 championships under his belt and passed the torch to Magic, who had 5. Shortly after, the Chicago Bulls took over the lead, and it was Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen who had the most championships of any active players clear up until the early 2000s. By 2005, the crown swapped heads between Shaq, Kobe, and Duncan up until 2016, when both Kobe and Duncan retired, and Tony Parker held the crown for a few seasons before retiring and LeBron winning his 4th championship in 2020. A couple years later, the Warriors won a ring in 2022, and since then, nothing has changed. Which leads us to where we are today, where among Hall of Famers and all-time greats, the active players with the most rings in the league today are LeBron, Steph, Clay, and Draymond, each with 4. But what happens when these players are gone? Soon enough, these guys will retire, and the next group of players will take the mantle as the league's legacy players. Jokic, Giannis, Luka, Shea, Tatum, all of these players with either 0 or just 1 ring. Now, we don't know how the next decade of basketball will play out. 1 or 2 of these players could go on a tear and win 2, 3 rings. But if the past 8 seasons is any indication of what's to come, even the greatest players in the league today may struggle to win more than 1 championship throughout the course of their entire career, which, according to ring culture, disqualifies them from being included among the true all-time greats of the sport. Are these current players simply not as great as those that came before them?
No. They totally are. They totally are. Maybe not yet, but they're building their careers. They're getting there. But the issue is the fact that it's hard to win another ring. It's not easy to win another ring. It's not enough. It's too much parity in the league and too much team building. You just can't.
Are we misinterpreting the value of a championship altogether?
for joining us.
No,
This was
thanks for
incredible.
having
You'll
me.
be back during the playoffs at some point,
Yes,
so we're
seven
looking
rings.
forward to
That's
that.
a lot of money.
7 rings.
Can
Can
I
you
get
just
one?
loan him one?
Just one. Nah, dog, you got to earn it. It would be right if I gave it to you, right? You did a lot of great things in the NBA, but you know.
You heard the man. You gotta earn your rings. If there's any player that knows a thing or two about rings, it's this guy, Robert Horry. He's got the most rings of any player in modern NBA history. 7 championships in his 16-year career, and he hits some of the biggest shots in playoff history, thus giving him the nickname Big Shot Bob. And he said this to Tracy McGrady, who of course never won a ring. And by ring culture standards, this is a perfectly normal and applicable thing for Mr. 7 Rings to say to Mr. 0 Rings. There's only one problem. Robert Horry averaged 8 points a game in the playoffs, was not the driving force behind those rings, and only even started in 2 of those championship runs. Tracy McGrady is one of the 50 greatest players to ever lace up. This is the effect ring culture has on basketball. If you didn't know any better, you would think Charles Barkley was an absolute slouch the way Shaquille O'Neal addresses him on television. That his opinion on winning and dominating the field is invalid because he never won a ring. Charles Barkley was a league MVP, went toe-to-toe with MJ in the finals, and was one of the best players of an entire generation.
Top 75
When rings
player,
mean
top
everything,
50 player
not
ever,
winning one,
actually.
or in some cases not winning enough of them, means you'll always be one step below those who did, regardless of everything else you accomplished. Which begs the question, if the NBA is truly in an era of parity, and the evolution of the league now makes it nearly impossible for a couple of players to hoard multiple championships for themselves, how will we remember Nikola Jokic if he only retires with one? How will we remember Giannis Antetokounmpo if he only retires with one? Or Luka Doncic if or when he gets to that point? At this rate, will anyone ever get within reach of GOAT status?
I mean, Wemby
and
has
is
a
this
chance,
era
but
of parity
it's just hard,
really just an era? Or is this just the new standard for the NBA and what's to come in the future?
Top guy only
from
wins one ring.
Dustin Nielsen, why is ring culture so much more prevalent in the NBA than in other sports?
I don't know why it's discussed so much in our sport and why it's the A-all, B-all of everything. Like, okay,
It's the highest
or if
level.
you won one, then you
Not
can't
enough.
be in the same conversation with this person. It's like,
But that's a great point, because what you're saying is like, no matter what you have, you need more. No matter what.
right.
No matter what, it can never end.
Yeah, a ring is a team accomplishment.
Right. We got to be careful sometimes how we can be so dismissive of a team, a player, an accomplishment, or a failure, because these are the best in the world.
Sometimes it just
He
fits
doesn't
the
have a
narrative
ring,
you're
it's
trying
like-
to match.
But have you actually sat down and actually like really looked at this guy's career and what he was able to accomplish, you know?
This was LeBron's take on ring culture last summer on a podcast with Steve Nash. A sensible take on a highly debated topic. Rings are great. They are the pinnacle of the sport, but they
shouldn't be
shouldn't
the end-all,
completely
be-all to
define
his
a player's
career.
legacy. And I'm sure the reactions in response to LeBron's stance were just as reasonable and rational as his was.
Factually incorrect. I'm just saying, he took
What?
individual credit.
Give it ahead. No, you didn't do that.
Right now.
Let y'all have that. No, let y'all have that.
Keep it right. No.
Actually, people lost their minds.
Yes.
Still clinging to the idea that rings are, in fact, the defining factor of a player's legacy. But if we don't know how to measure a player's greatness, and neither does LeBron, then maybe Michael Jordan himself might have some answers.
You're never going to say who's the greatest of all time. To me, I think that's more for PR and more for selling stories and getting hype. Jack and Tiger never played against each other. They never played in the same tournament. They never played with the same equipment. They never played with the same, length of golf course. I never played against Wilt Chamberlain. I never played against, Jerry West. To now say that, one's greater than the other is being a little bit, unfair. Yeah, Jack probably has 18 more majors, 18 majors, and Tiger's got 14. And I think those are when, that's how people are judging certain things. I won 6 championships. Bill Russell won 11. Does that make Bill Russell better than me and make me better than him? No, because we play at different eras. So when you try to equate who's the greatest of all time, It's an unfair parallel. It's an unfair choice.
It's also
what
all
Michael
biased.
is alluding to is precisely the flaw with using rings as a measuring stick for greatness. Ring culture tends to ignore context. The era they played in, the path a team had to go through, the fashion in which they won it, when in reality, it is the context itself that is the true measure of a player's game. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter of all time and arguably the greatest point guard of all time, and he's got 4 rings to prove it. But even for a player of his caliber, getting to 4 took an extremely unlikely set of circumstances to pull off. It took one of the greatest players of all time in his prime joining their 73-win team, as well as a historic salary cap spike in that exact offseason to create the perfect storm to build on their already championship roster. It took 2 completely unprecedented events for a generational talent to get to 4 rings. A similar sentiment could be said about LeBron, a top 2 player to ever touch a basketball, and he had to leave the team that drafted him, build a juggernaut in Miami, and put together the greatest comeback in NBA history just to get to 4 rings. And not only did it take extreme circumstances for these 2 to get 4, it took circumstances that are essentially impossible in today's league. Part of this is due to the natural evolution of the league and the sport, and part of it is by design. The irony of this clip, and the take that came with it, is that right before Vincent Goodwill said it, he actually explained exactly what makes championships today extremely valid.
I think Dynasty is better for the sport because if we're going to look at the way that the NBA experienced this golden age, those 2 decades where it went from Magic and Bird and Isaiah in between to Michael Jordan, that's where you had the greatest explosion in growth. And it's not just because those guys hoarded the championships. Now you're legislating parity. The owners are saying you aren't allowed to be great for an extended period of time because look at Oklahoma City with Durant and Westbrook and Harden. They weren't allowed to keep their 3 guys together because the money says, okay, you drafted.
But they could have kept Harden. They could have kept Harden. I'm going to stop you right there. They could have kept Harden. They, in fact, could have kept Harden.
Well, you drafted 3 MVPs. Yeah. You can't hold on to them.
No, they could have.
No, they could have.
But now, though, the second apron wouldn't allow that. The second apron wouldn't allow that. So at some point, Jalen Williams, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, they're gonna have to choose between only having 2 of those guys because it's gonna get to the point where there's gonna be too much money. Cleveland's gonna have to figure that out. Boston had to do that to their roster already. At some point, the Knicks gonna have to do that to their roster eventually. At some point, the Sixers are gonna have to make a decision too. So yeah.
Offices, advanced analytics, deeper rosters, larger talent pools including international players, and rules set in place explicitly designed to prevent teams from building dynasties. It is harder now, or at least as I've said before, it is more equitable now to win a championship than ever before. This era of parity could very well be a phase in NBA history. Eventually, someone has to lead their team to multiple titles among this.
Yeah, eventually someone's gonna win at least 2 or 3 in the next. Someone's gonna win the next 2 or 3 in the next coming years of the NBA. Someone's gonna win like 2 or 3 championships. Maybe not in a row, but like someone might go back to back, might lose one, then win the next year one, or they might go like some team might end up like winning like back to back or like win one, not win one, and then win one, not win one, then win one again. Like that might happen.
Generation of great players. But we have evidence that what we are seeing now is only the beginning of what's to come. 2 years ago, the NBA introduced the second apron, a set of rules created in the 2023 collective bargaining agreement that has since made it virtually impossible for teams to build a great roster and keep that roster intact. Due to a laundry list of financial penalties and restrictions, in today's NBA, winning a championship is as difficult as it's ever been, and winning another one has become, at least to this point, an insurmountable task. In today's league, KD signing with the Warriors wouldn't even be possible LeBron building a team in Miami wouldn't and couldn't happen. Running it back with the same proven core year after year isn't even feasible. If a prime LeBron or Steph or MJ were attempting to make real championship runs in today's league, in spite of their talents, the odds would be stacked against them, and the path would be more difficult than it was 10, 15, 30 years ago. The NBA has literally created rules that force teams to choose between keeping their current roster intact and maintaining the flexibility needed to improve on their roster in the future. And we're seeing these rules crumble teams in real time. After winning a ring in 2024, the Celtics traded Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday just to give themselves flexibility and stay below the second apron. The current rules of the league forced a championship team to immediately blow up their roster. The man who helped propel the Knicks to their title this season, Karl Anthony Towns, is only on the Knicks because the Timberwolves couldn't afford to keep him after making it to the conference finals.
Yeah.
We're only going to see more of this as teams continue to adapt to rules specifically made to prevent historic runs and dynasty contenders. If becoming the GOAT requires a player to match Jordan's 6 rings, or match LeBron's 4 for that matter, then fans of the NBA may need to once again reevaluate what a ring is truly worth within the context of when it was won. If winning only one championship, or even worse, winning none at all, makes a player or a title run invalid, then we are dangerously close to disregarding an entire generation of players in the NBA.
Yeah.
How much is an NBA championship worth? Well, if 30 years of evolution is the difference between Jordan's 6 matching Russell's 11, then maybe the last 30 years of the league's evolution is the difference between 2 or 3 today, matching Jordan's 6.
It's a great argument. It's a great video to try to define whether or not, you know, how much these rings are worth. I don't think 3 rings in this day and age are worth Jordan's 6, but I think to a certain extent, if a star on one team wins like 3 championships with that one squad, or wins 3 championships and he's the guy, and he has 3 rings in like in the last 5 years, and he has like 3 rings, or last 6 years he has 3 rings, I think that person automatically, especially if they're like the superstar on the team, I think that player automatically gets boosted ahead of a lot of guys currently in the league, because of the fact that if you can show me a team right now, you can tell me that team's gonna win a championship next year, or they're going to win more than one championship. Comment down below. Comment down below what team you think that is. And if you're new here, hey, let me know what you liked about this video and what was your favorite point of this video. But I think ring culture is hard because skill and having rings doesn't always define, you know, who's the better player. But at the same time, like, for example, James Harden is more skilled than Dwayne Wade. James Harden has a better offensive bag than Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade is a better player than James Harden, and that's not even just based off on the rings. You have to look at the context of the careers and what they did, and you know, like James Harden. You know, I wouldn't say James Harden. James Harden does take a dip in the postseason, and he does get a lot of scrutiny, but he does play worse in the postseason. Versus Dwayne Wade usually gets better in the postseason. So it's a narrative based driven thing, and it's always going to be, you know, it is, you know, it's just what it is, what it is. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. And this is Dame, and I'm out. See ya!